scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org.
Hey, you listen to conservative talk radio all week. Why don't you try something different for a change? The Majority Report with Sam Cedar is a 5-time award-winning daily left-wing political talk show. We go live every weekday at 11 a.m. Central Time on our YouTube channel. You can find it by searching for The Majority Report. We talk about the news, we take libertarian callers, we have debates, we interview guests on topics ranging from the post-Civil War Reconstruction era, child poverty, capitalism, the intellectual dark web, and more. And that's all just within the last month. If you want to hear what smart, progressive political talk that is occasionally amusing sounds like, then you need to tune in. And you're always welcome to call in if you want to hear the correct opinion on any given topic. I will give it to you. Tune in to the Majority Report at 11 a.m. Central Time on YouTube or later wherever you get your podcasts.
WVNN. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The time has come for America to hear the truth.
We are going to stand with them, and not only are we going to fight for their rights, but we're going to stand up for our rights here in our state, in our homes, and in our community.
One day longer, one day stronger. One day longer, one day stronger.
Because the future of labor's rights in the United States of America is not going to be decided in the courts. It's not going to be decided in Congress. It's not going to be decided on talk radio, and it sure is not going to be decided on Fox News.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator, David Story. It is Saturday, March 20th, 2021, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio on WVNN in the Huntsville, Decatur, Athens listening area from Athens, Alabama. A recording of this program will play tomorrow, Sunday, March 21st, 2021, on the great WGOL in Russellville, Alabama. Today, first, we are talking to Adam Obernaur, a RWSDU organizer, about the Bamazon Union campaign down in Bessemer. After that, we are talking to Anna Mudd. She is legislative staff for the National Association of Letter Carriers, about the repeal of the Postal Service's pre-funding mandate. If we've got time, we'll take some calls, talk about a couple stories, and more on today's Valley Labor Report. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Here's an announcement right at the top. This Saturday and every Saturday, the North Alabama DSA holds a necessities drive from 3 to 5 p.m. at the IBEW Local 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue, right across from Yellowhammer and Campus 805 in Huntsville. So if you're in the area and you want to drop off some clothes, some non-perishable food items, blankets, PPE, then swing by the IBEW Local 558 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue in Huntsville, Alabama, right across from Campus 805 and Yellowhammer Brewing from 3 to 5 p.m. every Saturday, and that means this Saturday. The donations are all forwarded to the Manna House, so they're going to a good place. You can follow at DSA North Alabama on Twitter for more information. So if you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we do clip segments and release them throughout the week. So if there's just one thing you want to watch, you can find it there without having to watch the whole show. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We've got a website where you can get our fantastic USA union-made hats. That is thevalleylaborreport.org. They are $35. That includes shipping, and it's really good. It's really good, folks. It's a good hat. I wear it all the time, even though it's a bit cheesy to wear your own merch. I wear it because it's a good hat. Another way to support us is if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, you can make a monthly donation to the show on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. So Adam Obernauer, he is an organizer with RWSDU, and he's incredibly busy at the moment, as you can imagine. He's only one of the lead organizers on the most important and largest union election in my lifetime. So, no pressure on him at all, and he has taken time out of his busy schedule to talk to us on talk radio here this morning. So Adam, thank you so much. I cannot begin to express how appreciative I am of you taking the time to talk to us this morning. Thank you very much.
Yep. Welcome in.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very grateful to have you here this morning. And to start us off, help us get an idea of your place in the campaign. I know you're an organizer with RWSDU, but what's your official title, and what are you technically doing? What are you doing in the campaign?
Sure. So I am an organizer. In New York, I am the director of our retail organizing, and so we do other things other than retail and supply chain and everything else. But in this campaign specifically, I am running the phones, and the phone bank is a pretty big component to the campaign because of COVID-19, which was how we had to try to figure out how we were going to navigate this whole, not meeting in person in the same way that we're used to. And as we all know, as unionists, meeting in person and building your union is the most important part of creating solidarity that can win and that builds a real union, right? So it's an interesting component of what I've been doing here. Is certainly newer to me in thinking of it in that sense. But I've been running the phone banks, the trainings on onboarding people to making calls, and providing the materials that arm everybody on the phones with enough to navigate sometimes difficult conversations or easier conversations, and so that's mainly my focus overall, in addition to helping with the strategy of the campaign down with the folks in Alabama. So that's been the main focus, and on the day-to-day, it's a whole lot because we do a lot of phone calls. We have a lot of pivot conversations. We connect to the ground all the time. And it's a whole massive operation with multiple tiers, in which workers we're reaching out to when. And we have a bunch of different tiers of different organizers making calls. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool operation overall.
Yeah, sounds like it. And definitely, like you said, with organizing during the pandemic, the phone banking takes a much larger role than it would be otherwise. So your place kind of leading that part of the campaign is very important. How did you get, what made you want to be staff for a union and be an organizer? What was it that drew you to the labor movement and want to do this professionally?
So that's a good question. I had a lot of really bad jobs when I was in high school and then in college, and the standard where you're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs and you're going to school. And it's funny that I got a job at a supermarket, and it was the first time that I had a job where I was like, oh, there's a union. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what that means, whatever, I guess. And it was a little interesting to me. I was like, oh, wow. We get double time on the weekends here. So I was making $10.85 an hour. Next thing I knew, my check was 21 and change on weekends. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Why do we have $21 an hour? How do we get that? And so I think for me too, there was healthcare provided for a grocery job. At the time, I was working in a warehouse, packing papers, which was really not the most desirable job, and have had multiple other jobs where I just didn't expect that level of treatment. So at the end of the day, I was going to college, doing science, trying to study science, maybe become a teacher. At the end of the day, I did none of that. I just got involved with the union and the labor movement, and then started working for the union to organize part-time workers, because I was a part-time worker working 29 hours a week at the grocery store. And so that's my journey. And I thought it was going to be something that was just short-lived. I'll try to do this. I don't know. And next thing I know, 12 years or so later, I'm still here.
12
and I'm still
years.
organizing.
How old are you?
And I'm 34.
What? Okay. Wow. I thought you were like my age. Okay. Wow. Well, that's amazing. That's really wild. That you've been doing this for so long, and it was kind of just kind of an accident. That's really neat.
I don't know if it's an accident. I mean, it sounds like you get the same way that I started in a grocery store, and there's a union there, and then all of a sudden you recognize how important it is, and go to doing God's work and organizing workers. That's right. That's a great history.
Yeah. So. Can you, back to the union campaign here, can you give us you said that it's really big, the phone banking part of the campaign. Can you put some numbers to that? Like how many folks are participating? How many folks are making calls into the warehouse, and how many are from outside of RWSDU? What are some of the larger groups, stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we've had well over 100 people on the phones. And when I say well over 100, that's as over time, right? So we've had phases of different phone bankers coming in. I think if I had to pinpoint the number, it's probably, I think it was like 113 the last time I checked, but we've onboarded more people since then. And so overall, it's just a massive operation. And in fact, we had to, at some point, just turn some folks down because we had so much appetite for people to want to be involved in the phone banking. And the process of onboarding takes a little while because we're really tight with everything, with the data. We want to make sure that everything is just being done in the same way, right? So that we don't have just a mess. It could be very messy having 100+ people from different organizations making calls. And so as far as the solidarity, I mean, that's one thing as someone that has been, doing organizing for a bit. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like the amount of people that are coming to want to help. It's really like a movement moment almost is how I see it. Yeah. But for volunteers that we've gotten, just to say a couple organizations and everything, we got volunteers from the AFL-CIO, some of their staff there, the Working America, the UAW, National Nurses United, some of the members there have been involved. AFT, so we have had teachers. We have the Postal Workers Union. We've got UFCW Local 21, the Seattle Area Labor Council, the MLK Labor Center from Seattle, the worker centers like Brand Workers from New York, Unite Here, OPEIU, TWU. Wow. I mean, it's crazy. The Bernie for Labor folks through Jonah helped us get a whole crew of people who have been making calls through Jonah Furman. It's been wild. It's really been special and something that is new to me. Mm-hmm. I've been organizing for a bit and I've never seen this outpouring of solidarity. I wish it happened every time there was a campaign, at least in a local manner. But I think hopefully it's something that might create a spark, and hopefully we can create this kind of solidarity locally in other campaigns too.
Yeah, what's the proportion of, like, you know, I know that basically kind of a lot of the RWDSU staff internationally is their attention is being focused on this campaign, but what's the proportion of folks that are, you know, of those 100 and some odd folks, how many are from RWDSU versus outside of the union?
So at the RW, we have probably between 30 and 40 callers, depending on the day, that are staffed with the union or members of our union. We have members calling too, some of the stewards and from different shops. So that's also a component of it. And then in addition, which I didn't mention, of course, we have the worker to worker component of the phone bank, which is, you know, Amazon workers calling their coworkers as well.
Yeah. And I can tell you from what, you know, what my mindset is what I would really love to see y'all do is take this to the next level, to the next warehouse, and use this, you know, build off of this same component and make it a run and not just a one off. And hopefully, from what I've heard, y'all have got callers from other warehouses has called you, so that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
To spin this into a nationwide organizing event.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'll let him answer that on the other side of the break. See what what they want to divulge as far as plans after the campaign. But that's really great, and that's one kind of unique part of this campaign is the solidarity. We'll be right back on the other side. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have...
All workers deserve fair wages, affordable health care, and a retirement plan that enables them to retire with dignity. All workers deserve to have a say about the terms and conditions of their employment, not just the bosses. With the machinist union's over 600,000 members having our back, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama has been serving workers' interests for over 20 years. Our members have the best health insurance in the area with zero deductible plans. We set the bar for pay in the area with over $40 an hour rates, consistently averaging the highest non-college degree jobs in North Alabama with some of the best retirement plans in the industry. We can do the same for you. Together, we remain united, raising our voices to ensure justice on the job and service in the community. The Machinist Union is a true Southern union founded in Atlanta in 1888. We have been serving members' needs for 132 years. The longevity of our union proves our dedication and loyalty to the working class. The Machinist Union isn't just for machinists. We represent workers in government, healthcare, auto workers, aerospace workers, transportation workers, the defense industry, and woodworking. Our members even build the iconic Harley-Davidson motorcycles. If you're ready to get serious about better benefits and wages, if you want to have a voice in your workplace with over 600,000 members to back you up, call or email us today at 256-286-3704 or organize at IAMAW44.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. Here in Huntsville, federal employees are an invaluable part of the nation's defense, offering unmatched expertise in engineering and technology and as stewards of taxpayer dollars. What we ask for in return is to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, is a union of working people looking out for each other, making sure that we're treated right. To inquire about joining or to learn more, call 256-876-4880.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the proletariat, y'all.
WVNN. Depend on it.
Charge for the land. A population burned up, bled dry. The marginalized multiply. And unite to fight.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we have the incomparable Adam Obernauer of RWSDU. He is the organizer running the phone banking campaign for the Amazon union election. And, that's a really kind of unique thing that you were talking about with this election is the amount of solidarity, the outpouring of support, and the willingness of the union to accept the help. I saw it was the Huffington Post's labor reporter, Dave Jameson, I believe. He said that he met Chris down there who's doing y'all's video and said that he just drove down from Oregon and was like, hey, I want to help. And and y'all were like, okay, you can help us. I mean, obviously, you vetted him to a certain extent, and you made sure that he was like the real deal, and he wasn't some kind of weird Amazon psyop or something. But like, he's just like somebody who's really passionate about it, and he came down, and now he's like on staff with RWDSU doing y'all's videos. Like, that's like cool as hell, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's pretty special, and I think that a lot of the credit goes to just the leadership of the union's willingness to also open the doors here. Yeah. I know that we've put together a pretty comprehensive community canvas too, which I know y'all are familiar with. And it's not really us putting it together. It's the Birmingham DSA, the Birmingham Black Lives Matter, Our Revolution, the PSL, the Socialist Alternative has been phenomenal, and all these groups that we kind of just opened the doors to. We did a similar thing on the phones, right? And so we feel like bringing the movement back to the labor movement is a real important thing here, because we can't just be fully open all the time, but there's really a lot of folks in the labor movement are very suspect of people coming under the tent. And I understand that. I mean, I totally understand and relate to why, especially with, like you mentioned, Jacob, like vetting people and not knowing who they are and everything else. But at the end of the day, like, we can't be a strong labor movement if we're not welcoming people in and building with people that are from different organizations or volunteering for different left groups or whoever. And I think with the phones, it's really special, but it's also special just in, like you mentioned, with Chris and with other people that are just so passionate that come down, and we're trying to be respectful of this in a way that is building the labor movement beyond just our union and beyond just this campaign, right? And that's the one thing that I think is kind of what you mentioned, David, on the other side of the break, is like the idea of bringing this to other places. Well, the Birmingham DSA and the BLM and these local groups, there are local groups in other places that are going to be worth connecting with. And how do we build this from like the micro level of the local communities, and then to the macro level of other support, like the larger Black Lives Matter network and other like larger solidarity that we're looking for overall, because I think it's an interesting movement moment, and we should try to replicate it in every way that we can.
What's been really interesting to me is about 4 years ago, I was elected to the state council of machinists, and we had never really, it's kind of like what you were saying. We've always been reticent about allowing outside interests or building allies within the community, and it was my specific goal to completely change that and start reaching out to allies, and it's really shown, even with us and Jacob as the Secretary Treasurer of the North Alabama Labor Council, to the best of my understanding, we were the only labor council in the entire Southeast United States to hold a Labor for Black Lives Matter rally. And I think I think that's kind of surprised everybody across the nation, because I don't think there was a lot of trust in the labor movement in Alabama especially. But what we've seen with DSA, and like all the other groups that you spoke about, has really came out and just been amazing allies and support around y'all's campaign. which is, like you said, it's completely unheard of. I've never had the kind of help like y'all have got. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I'd say too, did I forget the Northern Alabama Labor Council has been helping out on the phones?
You did. Well, there's only a few of us. That's not a big deal. And
no, I'm just kidding. I just to your point though, I think it's true. And we've done similar things at our union before with building. For example, when we ran the Guitar Center campaign, we did a whole thing with musicians. When we did the Babeland and other smaller campaigns in New York, which were like queer, sex positive, businesses we built with a lot of the queer community in New York and everything. And we're used to like building with community. The car wash campaign that we did also from our union, we built with very long-term immigrant rights organizations in the local areas. But this is just different. It's a different flavor. It's from all over, from all places. And it's just the scale of it is extreme, and everybody wants to help in a way that is different. It's not just like, can you endorse the campaign? It's people coming to say, how can I help? And I'm here for like 2 weeks. And that kind of stuff is just so different than I'll give you a quote, I'll give you, this and that. And so I think it's just really a special moment. And I think it reminds me a lot of like, the Occupy moment or other moments in where you just see outpourings of support, almost like you light a match and then, and you throw it into the fire kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, you said that this is a good moment. And, David said something about this before we went to break. How much are y'all willing to divulge your plans to turn this moment into a movement and go to other Amazon facilities?
Well, that is, of course, something we're very sensitive about, right? And for various reasons, the last thing you want is for an employer to find out what your plans are. And so we're very tight about that. But of course, there's been an outpouring of people reaching out to us. I mean, it's just the moment itself here is massive. And so there are many, many workers that are reaching out and inspired by the workers in Alabama. And that's the piece too. Like, this campaign is nowhere without the inspiration of people like Jennifer Bates and like Daryl Richardson, but also like a lot of the people at the facility that are calling their coworkers but are not in the public face. And I think that inspiration is just, carrying on, hopefully, to many Amazon workers, but just workers all over the country.
Yes.
So what you're saying is we'll know when we need to know.
We'll know.
and I hope to God everybody will be as reticent to jump on board with the next group, because like you said, I believe this is a moment that everybody recognizes in the labor movement, that this could be a windfall. A windfall, not just for RWDSU. And I think that's why everybody is willing to help, because it could be a windfall for the nation.
Everybody, yeah. And so Adam was talking about the importance of the folks on the ground and the conversations that are happening, and he has been reading notes from every single phone call. And so I want to talk specifically about those conversations and what they've been looking like throughout the campaign on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
Huntsville's #1 news, talk, and weather station. WVNN Athens. WVNN FM Trinity. A Cumulus station. It's 10 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. The federal government's been trying to deal with a massive influx of migrant children at the southern border. Texas Governor Greg Abbott tells ABC it is a humanitarian disaster.
The Biden administration did not get prepared for what the floodgates would look like. And you're seeing it. You're seeing the Biden administration scramble, being incapable of dealing with the number of people coming across the border.
ABC's Matt Gutman is in El Paso with more on the conditions.
Border Patrol officials are trying to make it as comfortable as possible for these kids, but many of them are sleeping on what are basically camping mats on the floor. They have those foil Mylar blankets. That's all that they're given. They have warm clothes. They're given ample food, but these are not conditions for children. They're pretty much jail-like conditions. And the problem is there's a massive backlog to try to get them to HHS facilities, which are designed to house children.
Meanwhile, Americans are continuing to travel more. The TSA screened over 1 million flyers for the 14th day in March on Friday. More than 1.4 million people went through checkpoints, the highest number since last March. But President Biden and other officials in his administration are warning people not to let their guard down yet in this pandemic.
The president telling CDC scientists he's grateful for their work helping find effective vaccines and warned another deadly surge could happen.
Things may get worse as new variants of the virus spread. That's why we need to vaccinate as many people as quickly as we possibly can.
The president celebrating the 100 million vaccinations in fewer than 100 days, saying all Americans will soon be able to get the shot. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
The president was in Atlanta along with Vice President Harris to meet with Asian and Pacific Islander community leaders after the shootings at 3 spas in the area on Tuesday that left 8 people dead. 6 of them were Asian. The investigation continues. You're listening to ABC News.
We know small business owners are too busy to worry about hiring all the time. That's why when you post your first job for free on LinkedIn Jobs, we tap a network of over 700 million professionals to help you find the quality candidate you need quickly, no matter what role you need them for. No, really, any role.
Like marketing wizards?
Found them.
That project manager I could never seem to hire?
Found them for free.
Even this software engineer I'm totally lost without.
Consider them found.
Incredible admins, otherworldly account analysts, and top-notch technicians?
Found, and found.
An IT person who doesn't resent me for always forgetting my password?
Frankly, we're not sure that's a thing. So, how do we do it? Well, LinkedIn Jobs targeting quickly matches your roles with candidates who have the right skills and experience, and puts your job in places they'll see every day. So, looking for an easier way to make that next hire? You found it. Post your first job for free and get started at linkedin.com/entertainment. That's linkedin.com/entertainment. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey y'all, are you tired of hearing that the South is just a bunch of racist rednecks? Well, tune in to Dixieland of the Proletariat podcast. We talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Join Nelson, Senior Telecommunications Director Tommy, Comrade Kate, former pig farmer Tyler, and Brother William, wherever you stream your podcast. And good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see y'all next time. It's Dixieland of the Proletariat, y'all.
Where Alabama talks. WVNN. Depend on it.
Now that's
Lonely dead, stuck, bleeding pig. Lonely did I choose to dead.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We have the great Adam Obernower of RWSDU. He is an organizer on the Amazon Union campaign, handling the phone banking. And so the biggest reason that I wanted to talk to him is because, like I said before we went into the break, he has been reading notes from every single conversation that takes place over the phones, and that's a lot of conversations. You've got 100 people making calls. That is, as I understand it, it's hundreds of calls a day, and these conversations are really bringing out some of the history that we talked about on our show on YouTube. If you only listen to us on the radio, you should definitely follow us on YouTube. We did an interview with Dr. Robin Kelly, who wrote Hammer and Hoe, about some of the more radical history of Alabama and the Alabama labor movement. And Adam, you're saying that a lot of this history is really coming out in the phone conversation. Yep. So talk to us about some of the beats that you've seen, that you've talked about on your in the debrief calls when we're when we're talking about the phone, when the phone bankers are doing our debriefs. You've talked about beats that the campaign has had on the phone banks throughout the campaign. What have some of the major points been?
Yeah, no. So this is really interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people have wondered, well, what does that history have to do with this campaign? It's been so long ago. What does that mean? And it is interesting because I wasn't sure what it would mean theoretically. Robin Kelly's Hammer and Hoe is a phenomenal book. And I think that it's very inspirational to read that and see the roots of the history here in the area, which is just gives me a great appreciation for Birmingham, for Bessemer, for Alabama in a real way. And that's why when you see things like what an odd place that this is happening in Alabama is just so ahistorical in so many levels. And I just think it's funny when I see that, because it's like it not only doesn't take in part or in consideration the civil rights movement, but also like the radical labor history of the 30s in Alabama. And so, yeah, on the phones, many workers have uncles or parents or grandparents in unions. And what does that look like? So I spoke to a worker yesterday that had their grandparents were in the mine mill union in the 30s. Their parents were in the Boilermakers union. Naturally, knew about unions, knew about negotiations, knew about all of this, and we're just excited that this was happening. But that's just one conversation. We've seen this many times on the phones. We've seen my uncle told me if I don't vote for the union, he's going to come down here. And, yes. there's a lot of that. And what does that mean? Well, it's not just that they're union members. It's that they have deep histories in a lot of their families of the union in general and the unions in general. And I think it shouldn't be lost on people too what those unions were back then. I mean, they were really the forefront of what was seen as some of the most progressive and left partnerships between working class white people and people of color, and specifically Black people in Alabama. And it matters, right? I do think that the history matters. I think people's ancestry matters. And I think that their connections to the unions in their family's history can't be separated from the campaign. Yes. We just had Chris put out a video with a worker, Emmett, who talks about his family's history in the unions too. And that's what got him interested in joining. So just to say that, I mean, it's something that regularly comes up on phone conversations for sure.
Yeah, and I know Jacob's got some other questions that he wants to get to. He's over there typing right now, but I was wondering if you could just take a moment to speak to what you, and it goes back to what you heard on the phone, but one of the things that's been constantly said about, I can't believe this happened in Alabama, and I think that speaks to the level of oppression that these workers are seeing. And I said it a few weeks ago. We work a little bit. We talk slower in the South. We work a little bit slower in the South. And it goes back to the heat that we are under, the humidity that we're under. We're just used to doing things a little bit slower because we know you got to make it through the entire day. And this company is not used to our style of work at all. But, so could you speak a little bit to what these workers, the pain and the agony that these workers are under right now? Because I think that puts a highlight on why it happened in Alabama as opposed to other places.
Sure, that's an interesting point. I think if you think of Amazon, it's a lot of everything's monitored. When you step off your station, it's considered TOT time off task. So immediately, if you're off station, that time starts ticking. So that's where you see the complaints about breaks. Right? Why is there a complaint about a break? Well, if you got to walk to the break room in a big facility, and then you take your break, and then you got to walk all the way back, like how long is your break? It's half of what you thought it would be. And then your time on task is ticking immediately when you walk off the station. And so that's definitely a major piece of frustration for workers by and large. And it's just the overall surveillance kind of style that Amazon has as a whole. That's just basically, pushing you to go as fast as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And like rate, right? You're judged upon your own rate. So if your average rate is 250 pieces per hour and you fall behind to 230, then you can get a write-up. It's like the task is constantly being pushed and rate is constantly being pushed. And that's how Amazon kind of squeezes workers' labor out until the time that they're burnt out, and then they just leave, and then they get another fresh person to come in and do that work until they squeeze them out. And then they always fall back on we have a $15.30 minimum wage here at Amazon, which is partially true, and so you should be happy. That's really offensive. You should be happy with what we're giving you because, not everything's just about wages. And also $15.30 is not a living wage. It's not bad. It's better than other places, but that doesn't mean, it's like the throw money at you, so you should be happy kind of style, which is not very, it's not very respectful.
Yeah. Well, and it's not any, it's a little bit better than some other retail or service jobs, but this is a warehouse job. And Josh Brewer pointed out in some of the other conversations that he has had that some of the small regional warehouses that y'all represent in in the area, their wages are higher than Amazon's, and they certainly don't have the largesse that Amazon does, but they've got wages at some of those other smaller regional warehouses, $18, $19, $20, $21 an hour that y'all represent.
Yeah, and I like to say this a lot because I don't believe in unskilled labor.
Yeah,
I think that it's just a nonsense idea. Even if you're working a job that you have to deal with customers and you have to deal with customer service, whatever it is in service industry, everything. And there's this idea that well, this is just unskilled. We'll just throw someone else in. These are not unskilled jobs. I mean, it's just not. And so I think that when you look at that, there's a reason. There are nurses that are unskilled labor in some places that when they don't have a union. Right. And they're making $12 an hour. I'm sure people would think that that's unskilled. You look at people, it's just all about organizing. Right. Yeah. And it's all about having a union. And at the end of the day, if nurses never organized, if teachers never organized, I mean, it's only we're very close from considering that unskilled labor to a degree, in my opinion, because I think that everything you have to organize in order to take what you deserve. And I think that when you look at some warehouse jobs, I mean, we at the RWDSU also have warehouse workers that are making $70,000, $80,000 a year. We have really good warehouse contracts in other places around the country too, and not just Alabama, which we also have higher wages in some of the warehouse work here. So I think a lot of it it's that perception, right? In retail too, it's interesting. We have retail workers that make commission that make $100,000 a year that are members of this union, which is wild, right? But then you have also retailers that are non-union that the workers make minimum wage and no commission. So where's the the only difference is the union.
The unskilled part is only unskilled until somebody, and it's really a classist. It's a way of convincing the working class to turn against the other portion of the working class. But the unskilled portion is only unskilled until you leave McDonald's or Hardee's or what have you, and they screwed up your hamburger. Then all of a sudden you want skilled workers, and it's it's a slap in the face to anybody. We say it all the time. All work has value, and if you don't believe that, then you don't deserve to. You really don't deserve anything because everybody out there is struggling. Simple as that. There's no such thing as unskilled workers, no matter where you're at. I can guarantee you, especially at Amazon, because they probably got a lot more technologically advancements than what most workers see in their day-to-day life.
Yeah. So, what are what are the more anti-union workers that folks in the phone banks are talking to? Because of course, there's been a really good reception that I've seen calling workers. I've actually not had a bad conversation. I've not talked to any virulently anti-union workers there, but there are a few. And what do they say when you tell them these things, and what are they saying to the folks? And there are a lot of them that have been brought from really anti-union to now being kind of central in the campaign and calling other workers supporting the union. So what have they been saying while they're anti-union, and what has the journey looked like? And we've only got about a minute and a half left, so if you need to pick it up on the other side of the break, that's fine.
I'll just say this. Union busting is psychological warfare. It is, a constant attack on information. And when you are an employer and you can sit down workers to sit down through 5 to 10 classes, as they call them, it's really difficult sometimes for anyone to just to push through it. And a lot of workers, and I say that to answer the question, Jacob, to say that a lot of workers that we talk to will say, look, I just want this all to be over. Like, I'm tired of hearing from the Amazon. I'm tired of hearing from the union. There's just too much information. And that's a goal that union busting has, right? Is to say, we're just going to throw so much information to the point where nobody knows what information is true. Nobody knows what information is false. And that's that. And so that's part of it. The dues, right? The confusion around dues is a big thing, right? Even though Alabama's a right to work state and you wouldn't have to pay dues. And we lean into that to say, look, you pay dues if the union has a good contract and you have a good steward structure and you have a good, but to get there, it takes a while, right? In a conversation, because there's a lot going on. So I would say that a lot of workers do flip, though, when you talk about it and they realize that
we'll pick that up on the other side. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. If you're looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334. That's 256-383-3334, or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
It's your news now. WVNN. Depend on it.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we have the great Adam Obernower, an organizer with RWSDU. We were talking about some of the conversations that phone bankers and workers, organizers, volunteers have been having with some of the anti-union workers in the facility. And so, Adam, I'll let you pick back up there where you left off.
Yeah, and I'll just be brief on this too. You know, I'll just say that the workers here overall have just been very resilient, and so they could go through 9, anti-union classes, and then we could talk to them for 30, 40 minutes, and they will come around and understand that, it's a little bizarre. I'll say one of the that Amazon focused so much on vote no, and I'll say one of the things that's really helpful is to say, well, look, why do you think if the union's so bad, why do you think Amazon's spending so much money and time pulling you from time off task? They're pulling you for these classes, and they're so on you about making sure you don't get pulled from your class, from your time off task, even for breaks. Yep. But all of a sudden, they're willing to take you out on these classes to teach you about why the union is bad. If it's, why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think that they're paying these educators $3,200 a day, and they've got so many of them in there, to convince them that the union's bad? If it's that bad, from Amazon's perspective, then maybe it's something worth looking into. And that's sometimes what will click with one of some of the workers is, I don't know why they're spending so much time on this, and so I think that that's really helpful, especially thinking about how anal Amazon manages management is about you coming off your task, but they're more than happy to pull you off to talk to you about how the union's bad. So that's interesting. So I guess, telling you that the union's bad is much more important than you using the bathroom. Right. And I think that's a good, it's been helpful on the phones.
Yeah. And when you say the union's bad, I think it's important to clarify what they're saying is the union is not going to be any help for the worker.
Right.
There's not going to be anything there you're just going to pay dues and they're not going to do anything for you. So, I just wanted to clarify that what they're saying is they're not going to do anything for you. You're going to get nothing out of it except for you're going to have to pay, a few dollars a month.
Yeah.
Right. And because what they do is and this I'm sure you're familiar with, right? They third party the union, right? And it's like, well.
And they don't third party their lawyers and the people they pay $3,000 a day that are literally, that nobody in the warehouse asked for those people to come in there and talk to them. People asked the union to, the RWSDU to talk to them and they're talking to each other. And so, but they're the third party, not the union busting lawyers that they pay millions of dollars to. Certainly not.
Yeah, and what we say always to people on the phones is, look, you all are creating and building your union. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, your coworkers thousands of your coworkers are building this union, and they expressed interest in building this union. And so if they say, well, what can the union do for you? A lot of the times we like to say, well, you're building the union. What would you like to do with your coworkers to change things at Amazon? And then there's a confusing shift sometimes. It's like, wait, how am I the union? Well, I mean, you literally are. This is how it works. And, we're here to guide you through the process, but the process is the process. And we hope that you're able to take back power and ownership and agency of your lives through the unionization process. And so a lot of times that does click with people because they're like, oh, wait, so you work for the union? What's in it for you? It's like, honestly, at the end of the day, like we're going to keep organizing other places. So it's going to change your life. It's not going to change the staff life of people that work at the union. It's not about us. Right. And so that's usually pretty helpful in talking to folks.
I found that it's pretty helpful when they realize that I'm not even staff. I'm not I'm a member of some random other union that's just in it because, I love the workers and I love worker power and I think they deserve more. And so that's been, whenever I've had the more extended conversations, I've been able to tell them, like, look, there's literally, I don't get commission for this. This isn't my union. This is my movement. And this, and I believe that everybody deserves more. Have there been any, specific conversations that you wanted that you'd like to pull out, or is kind of the broad strokes cover most of it?
No, I think most of it's covered. I mean, I think we've covered most of it. And I'd say too, on the like you said with the volunteer, the one thing I'll say is there's this, the thing that they floated around was about the union, that they're fancy, expensive cars. So I like to say on the phones when I hear that, it's like, if you know who's giving away these cars, let me know. I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in years. So I'd love to get, give me the number of who I can call. Can you ask that labor class guy who the union staff can call to get one of those cars? So it's it's pretty funny. It's special.
So how are y'all looking? How do y'all feel? With the vote ends in 9 days. All ballots have to be in by March the 29th. How's the RWDSU feel?
We feel pretty good. It's tough. It's a tight race. I'm just to be very honest about it. Amazon has done what we would say is like psychological warfare and really hammered down on all of this. And so there are people that are, not in favor of the union, but there are many people that are in favor. The playing field is not even. I think this campaign exposed that to the mainstream on some things that we've known for quite a while. But it is a close one. I do believe we're winning the atmosphere. I do believe that there are a lot of workers that are calling us saying, hey, I want to support the union now. I didn't support the union before. And I think that's because of all of the support. The community canvases matter. Workers are seeing people in their communities knocking on doors, and they say, I thought is the union knocking on doors? No, that's your community members just supporting you. Yeah. So that has come up on the phones also. And so we feel pretty good about it. It's such a large election. It's hard to tell, of course, because there's so many workers, but we're looking onward and we're feeling hopeful.
What about folks that want to volunteer that haven't been able to get integrated into the campaign yet? What if there are folks listening that want to help and want to support, what can people do at this point?
Yeah, well, you got 1 week left, so there's not a whole lot of time.
There's not a whole lot, but there is a week left. Today and tomorrow, we have community canvases going on. You can come by the Union Hall. Today, we have music. We're going to have food trucks. It's going to be a whole community day at the hall. Tomorrow, there's another community canvass meeting out of the hall, too. And so I would suggest if you can this weekend, it's going to be a big day. It's going to be a lot of fun. And in addition to that, we're looking forward to winning a contract fight. So this is we're looking for long-term relationships to build. So anyone that's in the area, come on and contact us. And we're looking to build some real community support here. If you're not in the area, we probably have a legal battle on our hands. So feel free to reach out to me too. If you want to get involved, I can plug you into the right space.
And when you say the Union Hall, everybody in Alabama knows where 5 Points South is. I mean, 5 Points South in Birmingham is like an iconic area. The Union Hall is just around the corner from 5 Points South. So if you Google RWSDU, I think it's Mid-South Council, that will take you directly to the Union Hall. But if you're a little bit unsure, it's basically 2 blocks over and 1 block north from 5 Points South. So it's very easy to find. There's a lot of parking down there. Not right in front of the hall, but you can park just about anywhere downtown, and you're just a few blocks walking distance from it. And I would assume today, with the wonderful Nina Turner coming out, that you are going to have some more kind of. I really wanted to be there for that because I just love her to death. She's a brilliant ally.
Both of us have heard her in person, and I think it's been one of the more for each of us. I think it's been one of the more inspiring speeches that we've heard.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. She'll be here in a little bit, and we are all inspired by Nina Turner, and our union is happy to also support her campaign. So for sure. And we've got a couple more surprises, hopefully, for the next week to see. We might have another couple community days and things like that. So we're looking forward to it all. And yeah, definitely reach out to me if you want to get involved in some form or fashion. We'll try to do our best to plug you into how to support.
Awesome. Adam, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. Do you have any closing thoughts for folks?
1 minute left.
My closing thoughts, I would say, is for everybody that's looking to organize a union in your workplace, to not be discouraged. I think that one thing that the Amazon workers has shown workers in general and people in this country is that you can take on Goliath, and you can do it with collective action and with power that you build with your coworkers. And sometimes it feels really, really hard, and it feels like you can't do it, and it's too big. And we've heard that a lot from people at Amazon is, you really think the union can take on Amazon or Jeff Bezos? Or you really think, and we hear that from small employers too, like workers that are at a place. It's like, can you really take on this? We're not going to win. You can win, and you can take on, the biggest employer in the country. And I think that inspiration, sometimes we get caught up in not thinking things are possible. And, everything's impossible until it's done. And I think we got to have a radical imagination sometimes to think of what we can do. That's, I think, what I'd say is my closing words.
I mean, we are the workers. We are the producers, and we have been browbeat for so long that it's a lot of times it's hard for people to wrap their minds around. We can stop any day that we want to.
Yeah.
And when we stop, capitalism loses. That's that. I mean, and shop floor democracy is a beautiful thing when everybody comes together.
Yeah, all wealth is created by labor. They wouldn't have anything to invest if it wasn't for the product, the fruits of our labor. So, all the power's in our hands if we want to take it. Adam, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think everybody else has, and yeah, thanks for talking to us, brother. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, guys.
All right. Folks, make sure you stay tuned. We are talking to Anna Mudd, a legislative assistant with the National Association of Letter Carriers, about the repeal of the pre-funding mandate. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison. This is News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. News starts now.
President Biden and Vice President Harris in Atlanta Friday addressing the nation after meeting with Asian American women. This as Americans mourn the deaths of those shot to death in the city this past week. 6 of the 8 victims were Asian women. ABC's Elwin Lopez is in Atlanta.
From coast to coast, an outpouring of support and growing tributes for those killed. Among them, a mother, a wife, an Army veteran.
So I'm just here to kind of pay my respects for the victims because they're the ones that need to be front and center right now.
Atlanta police say they're exploring every motive in their investigation of 21-year-old suspect Robert Aaron Long. In Dallas, 1 person dead, 5 others wounded following an early morning nightclub shooting. The gunfire after a fight broke out between 2 groups in the club. Police say the shooter is at large. And Japan rattled by a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. Building shaking in Tokyo, but no reports of any damage or injuries. Dave Packer, ABC News.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker, and Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker, and Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air.
You have questions. We have answers. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Depend on it. WVNN.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story on the line. Now we have Anna Mudd. She is assistant to the national president of the National Association of Letter Carriers, and she is talking to us today about the repeal of the pre-funding mandate that the Postal Service has. It's a very important issue. We've talked about it on the show before, but it has been a long time. So Anna's going to give us a refresher and talk to us about the fight to get it repealed in this congressional session. Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Oh, thank you guys for having me on. I'm honored to be a part of the show and look forward to talking to everybody down there about some of the issues facing the Postal Service.
Let me just say this to start. It is so nice to talk to somebody with a Southern accent.
I get that everywhere I go. When I travel up north, they tell me I have an accent, and I tell them no, they're the ones with the accent. Right. So I'm proud of my roots. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I live in Southern Indiana now, and very proud of it. And don't try to shy away from it.
Yeah, you can the Southern accent, especially Kentucky. It sounds like Loretta Lynn. So that's awesome.
Coal miner's daughter there.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, we love it. We love our Yankee brother Adam, but we love our Southern folks too. So we're both of us born and raised here in Alabama. Love seeing some kinfolks on the show. So Anna, you are, like we were just talking about, you're from the South, but you ended up in the labor movement. What's up with that?
Well, I joined the Postal Service back in '96, so I'll be a letter carrier for 25 years come next month. And I grew up in a non-union household. My dad was an auto mechanic, barely made enough to feed us. We relied on the food banks and pantries and the schools to do the clothing drives for my two sisters and myself sometimes. To get by. I remember going to yard sales and that kind of thing for clothing. So when I became an employee at the Postal Service and discovered they had a union, it was kind of a no-brainer on wanting to get involved with that. Just carried mail for quite a while, and then started seeing some of the issues on the work floor facing letter carriers. And we have a lot of members that are just don't really have a voice for themselves. They want to lay low, not rock the boat, not want to stir up any trouble. And I kind of, was known as the loudmouth on the workroom floor, to be honest. And, was told, well, can you go talk to the supervisor about this? And I just wanted to really be a voice for my fellow letter carriers in there and try to help right some of those wrongs. Our letter carrier union is one of the great postal unions for the post office, and really strong union, really believe in what they're for. They put their members first, and just really wanted to be a part of that. The way I grew up, I didn't want my fellow workers to have to go back to any of that, and wanted to just kind of be a voice and believe in what unions do and the quality of life that they give their workforce.
Yeah. That's beautiful, strong, correct, and right. So thank you, Anna, for your service to the workers of this country and your work in the labor movement. So let's talk about the pre-funding mandate. What is it?
The pre-funding mandate is something that has burdened the Postal Service since 2006. You might have heard the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act was passed into law. And basically, it's a mandate that the Postal Service pre-fund decades worth of retiree health benefits for people that haven't even been hired or born yet, not even employed with the Postal Service. And it's unique to the post office because we're the only public or private sector that has this mandate placed upon us. Yeah. So, in 2006, when it was passed, the post office was going strong, everybody loves the post office, still do. But then the recession hit shortly after, a couple years after, and, like the rest of the country, it placed a big burden on us as well. And the payment is about a little over $5 billion a year, and we've lost probably over the last 14 years, it accounts for about 84% of the losses for the post office. So what we've done, we've been trying to repeal this pre-funding mandate through legislation, as long as I can remember. We were doing very well with that last Congress. Last February, we actually had a law passed in the House. It was HR 2382, and it passed overwhelmingly. I think it was about 309 voted in favor of it, and only 106 congressmen voted against it. And what's great about that and brilliant about that is all the lobbying that we've done with our members of Congress in the country to educate them about how burdensome this pre-funding mandate is. And that passed with bipartisan support, which our union really, really believes in, is in favor of. Yeah. The Postal Service is an American entity. It serves the American public, from the east to the west coast, north to south, no matter what political party or what kind of personal beliefs you have. Right. The Postal Service serves everyone. And we firmly believe that we just need to get in there and let these congressmen know how hard this mandate has hit the Postal Service and how we need to get out from under it to look toward the future and to start having the ability, the capability financially to do some of the things that will move us back to be where we're not worried about, are we going to shutter the doors or what our future looks like. So we have, we're working on that. Like I said, it passed the House back February of 2020, and we were working on educating our members in the Senate and speaking with them about the pre-funding mandate and trying to get it moved forward to where we could get it passed into law. And then, as you guys know, and everybody in the country knows, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, late February, early March, and everyone's focus shifted to trying to keep themselves safe, their family safe, their business afloat, and the Postal Service was no stranger to that. We were still out there every day, 7 days a week, delivering the mail on the front lines for the American public, because that's what we do as letter carriers. It was really not a thought in our head that we didn't want to keep delivering for the public, because we knew that a lot of people weren't going out. They were staying at home. A lot of people were losing their jobs, and we wanted to be there to provide for them. And the way we did that was, bringing their medicine still. A lot of people were ordering their groceries online. We wanted to continue to do that. So unfortunately, our education to the Senate kind of took a backslide to that. The House of Representatives, the Senate, the administration, they were, trying to feel their way through this pandemic as well. So unfortunately, the bill did not move any further last year in the 116th Congress. But fortunately, we continue to lobby, and the bill to repeal the pre-funding mandate has been reintroduced in this 117th Congress in the House and the Senate. In the House, it is H.R. 695, and so far, as of this morning, it has 257 bipartisan co-sponsors already on the bill. And in the Senate, it is S-145. And like I said, our focus has been in the House on it right now. We're looking to maybe get that moved forward and try to get as many co-sponsors, upwards of that 300 mark, like we had last Congress, and maybe try to bring it to the floor for a vote again. And then we feel fairly confident that we can work on it in the Senate and have bipartisan support there as well. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say it's important for listeners to point out, because you kind of glossed over this pre-funding for decades, and it's important for listeners to understand. If I could break it down for just a second, is this pre-funding is basically what Congress did then in an attempt to privatize the U.S. Post Office was require the Postal Service to pre-fund to have in savings. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 75 years of medical and retirement benefits for every postal carrier, every worker in the United States. And so when the listeners think about this, put that into perspective of what your budget would be like if you're making monthly health care and 401k or pension contributions
for 75 years.
For 75 years.
You're literally having to save for postal workers that aren't even born yet, right, Anna?
Yeah, it's for retiree health benefits, 75 years into the future, like you said, and that's a big burdensome payment. Most, pretty much everyone in America is on a pay-as-you-go, and that's simply what we want to do. We want to be on equal footing with everyone else, not have that yearly payment hanging over our head. And we had put nearly $50 billion in there and have amassed that before we had to not be able to make those payments anymore, because we simply weren't making enough money to make them, and we had exhausted our borrowing limit with the U.S. Treasury. So we've got enough in there that 10 to 15 years we could still fund these retiree health benefits. And so we just simply want to pass legislation to where we don't have this mandate hanging over our head, and that we would be on a pay-as-you-go, same as everyone else. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because a lot of people look at the Postal Service like it's archaic now. People use the internet, they pay their bills online. But you guys know down there in rural Alabama, the same as where I'm from in rural Kentucky, we have a lot of folks still that rely on the mail and really want to see their postal carrier every day. Not everyone uses the internet. Kentucky doesn't have, a whole lot of internet capability in a lot of the Appalachian Mountains and the rural areas. My family's from, Clinton County, Kentucky, which they still don't have good internet down there in some of my relatives' homes. And this past year during the COVID pandemic has really brought that to light about how much the American public still relies on the Postal Service. And a lot of people want to see us thrive well into the future. And your all show talks about union brotherhood and the union fighting for American workers. And that's what we do. I can retire in 10 years, but as a union advocate, I want to fight for those people that are just now coming in the door, our city carrier assistants that are on a path to career. I want to fight for them. I want the post office to be here well after I'm gone, and maybe one of them sitting on a talk show here with somebody in 20 years talking about the Postal Service and how it is still providing for the American public. And that's what our union does. We want to look out for the people that are just coming in the door. We want to make sure that the post office thrives and is there to provide that service for the American public, because service is in our name, and that is what we still want to provide. That's what we believe in, and we're going to continue to fight for it. And a lot of that is through education, and it's education getting out to the regular people that may not know some of the issues facing the Postal Service because they don't hear about it. And your show is a good way to do that.
Thank you.
And the thing is, not everybody can afford to pay $18 or $20. And no disrespect to the privatized industries, but not everybody can afford to pay that to go out and send a letter. And if you don't send a letter, to ship something, I mean, it's substantially lower, and y'all's hands are tied. If people say, well, why can't they just raise a little bit more money? Well, guess what? The Postal Service don't get to set the rates. So y'all are forced to pre-fund this, and then you rely on Congress to set the rates. So it's a double whammy on y'all.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking some more to Anna Mudd, assistant to the national president of the National Association of Letter Carriers, about this issue and more on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. You are listening to the Valley Labor Report.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
The Valley Labor Report is also supported by listeners like you. If you value the work that we are doing, injecting a different perspective into talk radio, and you have the means, consider signing up for a monthly donation on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report. Again, that's patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report to support our work and keep us on the air. People across Alabama are hurting. Elected leaders have bailed out corporations while sending only a one-time cash payment to working families despite record unemployment and a public health crisis. Hometown Action is fighting for working people across Alabama to build inclusive and sustainable small town and rural communities. Hometown Action demands that Congress pass a people's bailout that expands health care, sends cash payments to families, and invests in green jobs to restart the economy. Now is the time to act. Learn more at www.hometownaction.org. The American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE Local 1858, believes all workers are entitled to fairness, dignity, and respect. AFGE also knows that the best way to guarantee proper treatment is for workers to stand together, united, looking out for each other. In AFGE, we fight for workers every day to ensure a workplace that is safe and free from harassment. If you're a federal employee and want to be a part of this union, to protect yourself and your fellow workers, call 256-876-4880. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time, but the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maple, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-0000. 9333 or visit online at www.mtandj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
WVNN.
Try to add it up. You count the principal J-Rig, add it up. You count the first, try to add it up. You count the principal J-Rig, add it up. You count the...
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison here with my co-host David Story on the line. We've got Anna Mudd. She is assistant to the national president of the National Association of Letter Carriers. We're talking about the pre-funding, the repeal of the pre-funding mandate, which if you just got in your car, you're listening now, what it does is it requires the Postal Service to pre-fund retiree health costs and benefits for 75 years in advance. That is a requirement that no other federal agency, no other private entity has to do, but they put that on the Postal Service, and so that accounts for the vast majority of debt. You always hear folks about talking about, oh, the Postal Service is in debt. Oh, the Postal Service is in debt. That accounts for she said 80%, more than 80% of the debt that the Postal Service has had to take on since it passed in 2006.
Maybe we should get Congress to do the same thing for Congress. Let's refund Congress and the staffers for 75 years.
Yeah. Well, so
how quick will we shut down then?
Yeah, right. So they have been, obviously, because this is an extremely onerous requirement on the Postal Service. They've been trying to get it repealed ever since it passed. And last year it passed the House with bipartisan support. And I was talking to Anna yesterday about this, and she said that our very own Mo Brooks voted for the repeal. And so this really goes to show you the bipartisan support that the repeal has. And so you said that you've already got 250-something co-sponsors on the repeal in the House. How is it looking to getting it on the floor, getting it passed through the House, getting it passed through the Senate, and what can folks do to make sure that happens?
Well, Jacob, I'm sorry. When we were speaking yesterday, I had said that Mo Brooks voted in support of that. I meant to say that it was Mike Rogers. We had three of the congressmen in Alabama voted in favor of it last year.
Adderholt,
Mike
Sewell,
Rogers,
and Rogers,
Martha Roby, and Terry Sewell. But we feel very confident that, like I said, we have the bipartisan support. And what we were talking about earlier is how much the American public and the members of Congress now know how important the post office is. And for all of the bad negativity with the COVID-19 and all of the losses and everything that everybody has had to sustain, the COVID-19 pandemic did bring to light how important the Postal Service is. And that bipartisan support is what is important. All of our members of Congress are starting to realize that this mandate can be corrected and that we can maybe repeal that through legislation and have the money to invest in our infrastructure, our vehicles, some of our facilities, and continuing to serve the American public that way. And we're pretty confident with the new administration that we're going to be able, hopefully, to get in there and meet in person. We have a great structure there in Alabama. We've got a great state president of the National Association of Letter Carriers. Her name's Antonia Shields. We have several congressional liaisons there, and they're kind of our voices for the NALC in our different districts in the congressional areas in the different states. And we could use the public's help for them to let their congressmen and women and their senators know how important the post office is to them and how much they have utilized the Postal Service and will continue to rely on them. You know, your letter carrier is your friend. It's your letter carrier. You look forward to seeing them every day, and they're the eyes and ears pretty much in your neighborhoods. We have carriers across the country that have, you know, saved people from burning houses, have seen some of their customers, you know, not retrieving their mail, and they've reported that, and maybe the customer is in there. We've kind of paid attention to packages missing, to people lurking around. children that are out, wandering. We are the eyes and ears of the community, and that is something that is not really talked about when you talk about the Postal Service. But your letter carrier is there 7 days a week, every house, on every street, in every neighborhood, and some of those issues that we want to continue to provide, the 6-7 day delivery, your door-to-door delivery. We want to go to every door every single day. We want to stay, to where we aren't privatized. I noticed David has the U.S. Mail Not for Sale shirt on, and I love that. I wanted to comment on that the minute I opened this up on the Zoom call, because I've got a couple of them in my drawer. But we appreciate that, and that's what we do as unions. We help our fellow unions in their time of need, and we appreciate all of the other union support in helping us get the word out about the post office is here to stay. And it's just some of the issues that we need to really, educate our congressmen and women on to do the right thing. And I think we're well on our way to passing this law to repeal the pre-funding mandate and come into, the future with the Postal Service and continue to provide for the American public, which is what it's all about on behalf of the NALC. That's why we do what we do. It's so we can continue to serve the American public through the Postal Service.
And it's important to point out, you brought up at the beginning of the show, or at the beginning of the episode, that your family relied on a lot of the food banks and a lot of the things like that. And I don't know the exact date, but I think it's sometime in May. I certainly know it's sometime in spring. The letter carriers is always doing a food drive at their mailbox, and should point that out, that y'all do a lot of great work in the community besides the service that you provide carrying mail. And like you said, helping out members, but that food drive is like the most amazing food drive in the nation, for certain. I would wager to say in the world that there's more. I don't know how many pounds, but I follow it every year and kind of look it up, and it's just like, wow, it's unbelievable the amount of food that y'all help out in the communities with.
Yeah, and that's a really important part of like Anna, like you said, the labor movement. Helping out our brothers and sisters in the labor movement and in our community. If you go back through our YouTube page, we've interviewed iron workers and electrical workers and talked about some of the stuff that they've done for free in their community, and it's really great working people being able to support themselves, help themselves, and help their neighbors, and that's the kind of thing that unions can do for folks when they are able to lift themselves out of poverty. Letter carriers are not having to go to, that it's a real living wage now that letter carriers have, and of course, they can make more, but it's not.
And they're the largest private employer of veterans in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much important stuff. So Anna, we've got about a minute left. Have you got any closing thoughts for the audience about this issue and about the letter carriers?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys first and foremost for bringing this issue to light and letting us have the opportunity to get on here and educate the public on what is facing the Postal Service, and to remind them to let their representatives know how much they still know and love us and utilize us. But I want to give a shout out to all my brothers and sisters that are still out there carrying mail 7 days a week. This COVID-19 pandemic has been hard on all of them, but they're still out there because they believe in the service they provide. You talked about the food banks. That's the second Saturday in May. It's going to be moved back a little bit this year, again, I believe, because of the COVID-19, but we're still doing, food banking behind the scenes virtually and telephonically and that kind of thing. But I do want to, just let them know that the representation they give us day in and day out with the American public is something that really keeps us going and keeps everybody a favorable light toward the post office. We might have some different service issues and this and that might be
Anna,
a rarity here
Anna,
or there.
Thank you very much for talking to us. We're coming up. Bye.
WVNN Athens, WVNN FM Trinity, a Cumulus station. It's 11 o'clock. News starts now.
From ABC News,
I'm Dave Packer. New guidance that could help get millions of kids back in the classroom full-time. ABC's Zareen Shaw.
The CDC reducing its distancing guidelines from 6 feet to 3 for elementary school students when everyone wears a mask. Also applying to middle and high school students, except in areas of high community transmission, where they must work in small groups or remain 6 feet apart.